Welcome to If U Street Could Talk. I'm your host, Candace Carrington, and I host conversations like these on my digital talk show, Cult TV. And when I'm not doing that, I'm helping companies use social media to build communities. Today's discussion is brought to us by the DC Commission of Arts and Humanities and Humanities DC, and it's being interpreted by interpreter Dina Hobbs, and it's part of the DC Funk Parade Gallery. I personally consider the DC Funk Parade Gallery and even the Funk Parade to be a love letter to U Street and its legacy as Black Broadway. And so I am so honored and so excited to be part of this conversation. For me, I grew up in Baltimore, but I like to say that I became grown on U Street. U Street was my connection to Black people, Black history, Black culture. It's where I discovered that I love to be surrounded by live bands and art. I went to undergrad at Georgetown University, and so U Street was how I got my fix. U Street was my home. And so I am just so excited for the amazing people we get to chat with today and the rich conversation that we're able to have to celebrate this historic street and its impact on our community. So we've got a panel of amazing perspectives today. They span generations, they span industries, and they also span different disciplines. Today, I'm joined by Stacey Lee Banks. She is the co-owner of Lee's Flower Shop, and they are celebrating their 75th anniversary on U Street. That's amazing as a Black business and as a historic presence there. So we're honored. Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you so much, Candace. I'm so happy to be here. And I loved your phrase that the Funk Parade was a love letter to U Street. I'm going to have to use that. I love it.
Thank you. That's how I feel. Like it's just we get to celebrate that.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we'll be joined by Brianna Thomas. She is carrying the torch as the author of Black Broadway in Washington, D.C., which is a book that covers this important legacy and will be released in January. Brianna, thank you for joining us.
Hello. Hi, everybody. So grateful to be here. Thank you, everyone at Funk Parade. And yes, so I am just finished my book officially. It's called Black Broadway in Washington, D.C., and it'll be out in January. And I'm just excited to talk about U Street today. So I'm an author, a journalist, actually also a co-pastor at Open Bible Ministries located in Waldorf, Maryland. And so I'm just excited. It's going to be a great day.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing discussion. And thank you, Brianna, for your important work, for helping us have these types of conversations and continue them long after, you and I and others are no longer here to be that presence. Thank you for doing that important work. And last, but certainly not least, we are joined by Bernie Demchuk. He is the principal historian of the Ben's Chili Bowl Foundation and also an important curator and carrying the torch and telling the stories of this important region and this important street and its impacts. He's also a professor at George Washington University. Welcome, Bernie.
Thank you, Candace. And Candace, I'm a Baltimore boy also, born and raised in Baltimore.
Yeah, okay. So we really just can't get enough of U Street.
Well, as a matter of fact, because the University of Maryland, U Street was so close, we'll talk about that later, but it's such a joy to be with you and Stacey and Brianna. I'm looking forward to an exciting conversation, and I love Baltimore, but I love U Street just a little bit more.
Oh, okay. I would say I'm split. I grew up in Baltimore, but I became grown on U Street. So I have love for both, but I'll let you have that one. And since today's the love letter and a celebration of this legacy. Okay, so I want to start by first thanking you all for sharing your time with us today. And speaking of like how we got here and where and what cities brought us here and the different opportunities, let's get into that. And we'll start with Stacey. What year was your first introduction to U Street, and what was it that brought you here?
Well, I'm a native Washingtonian, and there's not that many of us these days. But um, well, of course, the flower shop was already long established by the time I got here. And so I have pictures of myself with my Easter basket at like 5 years old, holding my Easter basket in the flower shop. So those are my memories, the photos that I have in the flower shop growing up. And so, man, I have so many memories of U Street. It's like my second home, really. U Street. I mean, I don't live on U Street, but I feel like I'm there more than I'm at home. So that's my introduction, just from 3 years old, 4 years old to now.
Stacey, I love that. For many of us, it's interesting that you think of U Street as your second home because of spending time in the shop. But for many of us, your shop has made U Street our second home, like being able just to step into that oasis as you hear the different music and the people milling about and having your space there as well. So I want to thank you for sharing your home with us.
Absolutely. And we love the energy of the Funk Parade, and just the whole energy of U Street is exciting. That so much so that our fourth generation, our children love to come to U Street. And they come there all the time for nightlife and of course to work. But they love U Street. And you have, it's home of Mochella, the young people's you know, gatherings, and they just love it too. So I'm so excited that they love. They're coming up and bringing U Street to the forefront as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
As she alluded to Mochella and the slightly younger generation, the new kids, Brianna, talk to us. What was your introduction to U Street? What brought you here?
So my introduction to U Street, I would say my first introduction would be my grandmother, Evelyn Thomas, who's wonderful. And just growing up, I'm a Maryland girl personally, so I'm born and raised in Maryland, but she moved to DC from Suffolk, Virginia, when she was a young adult, which wasn't uncommon back in those days for Black women to come to DC because there were more opportunities during the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so she used to always take us around town, me and my siblings, and she would tell me about her time at the Howard Theater and at the Lincoln and her time at Bohemian Caverns, and just, how she would dance and go to cabarets, and just, she was the first person to truly narrate the story of U Street to me. But what brought me to researching U Street, I'd have to credit Dr. Demchuk because my sister went to George Washington University and took one of his classes at GW. And so she brought me along on one of his famous U Street tours. And if you have not been to one, you need to sign up as soon as, COVID clears away. And he taught me how to eat my very first half smoke at Ben's Chili Bowl and took me on a tour around the city. And so that's how I started, just falling in love with the history of the city itself. And so, yeah, that's how I got here.
I love that. What I'm hearing just between your story and Stacey's story is that it's really, again, stories that really connect us generationally. I love the fact that some of the names, some of the different venues that your grandmother frequented are ones that, that are also part of my history, my personal history on U Street. So I am just, is it possible to fall deeper in love with U Street? I think it's happening right now. And Bernie, thank you. Your tours, leading the historical aspects of the foundation, just so important for this conversation and as we think about the changes happening on U Street. But what was your first introduction, and what brought you here from our hometown of Baltimore?
Well, Stacey Lee Banks will tell you that I go to Lee's Florist Shop at least once a week, and it's a fabulous shop, and everybody must get their flowers at Lee's Florist Shop. What brought me was since I'm the old man in the crowd, what brought me was 1966, University of Maryland, College Park. You know, it's a very easy bus ride right down Rhode Island Avenue from College Park to 7th and Rhode Island. We would get off of there in 1966 and 67, and we would go to the Howard Theater to go to doo-wop shows. I don't know if you young people know what doo-wop is, but it's a musical genre. And at the Howard, there would be doo-wop and soul reviews. And Alan Lee was the soul review coordinator. And oh my Lord, when we would get off of the bus, we would go right to Southern Dining Room and eat a lot of greens and a lot of pig and a lot of fried catfish. And then we would go to the Howard Theater. And then after the Howard Theater, we were starving and we'd walk on down U Street and we would pop in the Ben's Chili Bowl. So that was 66 and 67. And since I was a in and out of SNCC at that time, I found out when I was down there that SNCC headquarters was across the street from Ben's Chili Bowl. And there was a guy by the name of Marion Berry there and Stokely Carmichael. So I popped in one day and I hung out with the SNCC people. And guess what? I've never left since. So thank you.
Oh man, what quite the picture that you just painted, like taking us through like the music and culture that brought you there, but then also stepping into a bit of the politics and the social movements that were happening then. And honestly, they're happening now. You paint that picture for us and it's amazing. Can you go a little bit deeper into what U Street was like at that time?
Well, I think U Street has always had a sense of energy and creativity. Obviously, it was overwhelmingly African American, which obviously will give a lot of energy and creativity in the process. What I think was so alluring about U Street at that time was that it was full of Howard students, full of African American militants, much like right now today, and it was very friendly. I think that just the energy walking up and down the street, and you could hear back then there was probably 5 or 6 or maybe 7 different jazz venues, and probably 100, 200 African American businesses. So the energy on the street was fabulous. The music was fabulous, and of course the food. And so you got to always include the food. And Howard students. Howard students brought a special energy because at that time we're just really entering the Black Power movement. We're entering Black nationalism, and there was a lot of energy at that particular time.
Thank you. Stacey and Brianna, you guys have slightly different entry points into U Street, the times that you came. Was your experience similar or different to Bernie's? What was it like? How would you describe U Street at the time that you came to it? We'll start with Stacey.
Well, I will say that I went to school in DC, McKinley Tech High School, and when I would tell my friends that my grandparents had a flower shop on U Street, U Street at that time and during the 80s, it was kind of like a blighted area after the riots, the 68 riots. So they would say, oh, but as when the Reese Center came and then gradually started getting back to its, it's now gentrified, but I don't know. I guess the perspective changed. And then I went to Howard. Just want to say that, a shout out to Howard. And I would walk from the School of Business to the shop every day to work and to the shop. And that was during the metro construction from the 81 to about 86. And so it was sort of like a ghost town during that time. But since the metro, it's gradually come up to where it is now, and we're very proud to be there. But it wasn't always the energy that it is now or it was before. In between, there was a blighted time where I guess we had to get it. I don't know, it went down and now it's back up. It is what it is. The gentrification and everything. It's a bittersweet feeling that we have about U Street now. So that's my perspective on it.
Yeah, honestly, that is it's a complex issue, but it's a real issue. It's our reality. It's an honest thing. Just that having that blighted period and then entering a thriving economic and cultural force, and then having the impacts of gentrification that is unfortunately a part of our history now. And it's the reason why this conversation is so important, and your perspectives and sharing that are really helping us, hold on to that legacy and bring it with us into the future. So thank you, Brianna. What about you? What's your U Street like?
So I would say then, so if you're wondering my age, not supposed to, a woman shouldn't tell her age, but if you're wondering my age, I'm 27. And so I have a different perspective, of course, on U Street when I was introduced to it. But I would say even from when I started my research on U Street, for Washingtonian magazine back in 2016, 2015, things have changed dramatically already. U Street is a popping place again. It is a hot spot. I mean, ask anybody, it's a vibe. You want to be there. And that's how it was, during the time of Black Broadway between the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And with gentrification, the thing is, it's a good thing that there's a resurgence of energy and, there's a boost again. And there's way more foot traffic now than there was when I first started, researching, or when I first met Dr. Demchuk the first time, maybe a little more than a decade ago. And even then, majority of the people patronizing the businesses or owning businesses there, it was people of color. And you don't see that now. And so the question being is U Street is a hot spot again, but the question being for who, So.
That is an important question, truly. Very.
Candace?
Yeah.
Candace, may I say something about what Stacey said? Stacey's comment is really important. The 60s and 70s really brought in an opportunity for African Americans and inner cities to become all that they wanted to become. At the end of 79, we got a new president in the White House. His name was Reagan. And all of the Great Society programs that Johnson and Carter developed during that period of time, they all went downhill because Reagan pulled all the money out from the inner cities and sent it all over into military spending. That led to a significant decline in the social fabric and the economic development of inner cities, particularly Black sections. What Stacey's talking about is that is when the crack cocaine came in. That's when the violence came in. That's when crime came in. And that's when mass incarceration started. So Stacey's absolutely right. There was a hard period there for about 15 years where it was a very hard time. And it was all because of the federal government's policies of turning its back on the inner cities, actually turning its back on Black people. Have we heard that before? That's where we are right today. That's why we got to get rid of this guy in the White House.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for threading that for us. I think sometimes when you are in a difficult or challenging situation, it's hard to see, it's hard to look to the future with optimism because, you really can't think about the future. But having conversations about this and as you have all of you have so eloquently connected us with our past and what has gone on then and then the parallels to the present, that helps us be resilient. That helps us find optimism in a time like this. That helps us take the lessons from back then and do better with this current set of conditions that we're dealing with. So thank you. You all also did something else very beautiful, which was you all touched on monumental changes that really impacted the culture of the street and the way that things developed there. Stacey, you touched on the addition of the metro station and the period, overcoming the period of blight. Bernie, you've touched on like the Black Power movement, the Black nationalism movement. And then how that shifted with the entry of the political changes and changes in office in Reagan's presidency. And Brianna, you talked about just the overall evolution that we're seeing and the changes in the crowds and in the scenes there. Is there anything that you think is missing from this picture, like as monumental changes that we can point to that say, like this was the thing that really shifted the U Street that I started with and the U Street that I'm experiencing now? And that's an open question.
Yeah, I'll try to begin. I think there are two major changes that has significantly hurt U Street during the period that Stacey was talking about. Number one was the decline of Black businesses. We used to have over 200 Black businesses up and down U Street in the corridor. We now have about 8 that are still remaining from the time that Stacey's ancestors developed their business, Ben's Chili Bowl, Howard Theater, and of course, Industrial Bank. So we have lost a large number of Black businesses, starting with the rebellion of 1968. Notice I say rebellion and not a riot. The 68 uprising was a specific rebellion as a result of the murder of the King of Peace. Now, that rebellion drove away an awful lot of businesses. Then, as Stacey pointed out, the subway killed the remaining of the businesses. So today there's only about 8 Black businesses. Now, one thing that I'm going to advocate later is buy Black, particularly on U Street. The second one is the churches. The churches were the real center force of Black life on Sunday afternoons and on Wednesday nights. And the Black churches have also moved either to the suburbs or they have declined in their clout. So the two issues that I'm so concerned with is maintaining the Black businesses, and the churches are gone, but they were a major force in the social and the intellectual fabric of the U Street corridor.
Stacey.
I just wanted to mention that I'm so proud of my grandparents, William and Winifred Lee, who had the foresight to purchase our building. And if they hadn't done that, we wouldn't still be here. And I think that Benz owns their building and Industrial owns their building. So that can be sort of like the catalyst for a business being able to sustain a Black business is by owning their property or their real estate that they're on. So that's an important thing that I think we all have in common between the Black businesses that are there now, still there on U Street.
And I would the Black Masons at 10th and U, and now Oohs and Ahs. The Howard Theater is still in African American hands. So there are some other Black, Johnson's Florida down the street. There are some other businesses, but Stacey's absolutely right. To own the real estate is where the real power is. And the churches, of course, own their real estate, and the churches, that's where the real money in the Black community was, that the churches could leverage their real estate and help develop housing in the local community.
So what I'm hearing from the insights that you both shared was that, ownership, and as you pointed to, like having a central place of Black fellowship and Black wealth. So that would be, like you said, the church. Passing it to Brianna, what would you like to see remain on as a part of U Street? Like things that we should continue doing?
What I would like to see remain, or even more of, I would say the education. You know, a lot of times when we talk about U Street and the booming years of Black Broadway, what attracts everyone, of course, is the music and the jazz, which is wonderful. But there's just so many innovators and inventors that came out of U Street all throughout time. And specifically just thinking about Dunbar High School, which still stands today. But, that was the first African-American, high school for, Black students. And at the time, it was college preparatory. Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who wrote the foreword to my book, she went there, and she told me just a gripping narrative of she can remember being in class when it was announced that schools were desegregated. And, there were just teachers, there were PhD level teachers that were teaching at a high school, because there weren't many other places for these highly educated African Americans to go. You, of course, have Howard University, who you have Charles Hamilton Houston, who was there, who started the Howard University Law School or revamped it. Thurgood Marshall, we know, who, of course, the famed Brown versus Board of Education. All of these great educators, Charles Drew, who was the innovator of the blood plasma, and the Drew family has deep roots, in U Street to this day. And so it's just, I would like to see education continue, just getting back to that root of just being creative and innovative, and not just owning things, but also creating things again. That's what I would like to see remain, especially from our young people. We're just so smart. We just need the tools and the materials and the resources to put our brains to work.
I absolutely love that you touched on education. I think that's a piece that we often forget about, but as you pointed out, is so important for that next generation. And it's honestly a big part of the work that you all do, but especially you and Bernie, as you talk about history and you share that narrative through your different projects. What do you think? So, Stacey, you're third generation.
Yes.
You're a third generation flower shop co-owner. What is the key to longevity on U Street, in addition to property ownership?
Well, I would say our grandmother taught us business ethics, and she was like, make sure you pay your bills on time, make sure you pay your taxes. Those are important things that, if those don't get done in a small business, then you go out, because taxes can add up and go up high. And it's also, she also taught us to treat everyone fairly. Everybody who comes through that door should get a greeting, and they should be treated fairly and equitably, no matter what their status or whatever. So I would think it's just basic business ethics that she taught us that has helped us stay in business long. And we've also kind of given ourselves a facelift. We took our we renovated in 2016 with the help of the city with a grant, a Main Streets grant. So that helped out a lot as well. So we're just trying to keep ourselves current and relevant. So I think that's what has kept us going. Also, a big presence on social media. My sister is a whiz, Christy. She's a whiz at social media, and I can't tell you how many times people have come in. I saw you on the gram, and they come in getting a plan, or and so just staying current. That's it. I mean, Ben's Chili Bowl's doing the same thing. The other day I was driving down the street, and they had a DJ in the alley, and outdoor seating, and I was like, I called my sister and said, wow, Ben's has a DJ outside. And I understand they were playing all day, you know. So that kind of thing keeps you relevant, just to, you know, do what helps bring business to your place. So that's my
Yeah.
advice on that.
Yeah, I think what
Go ahead.
Bernie, I think you were going to share.
I was just going to say that I think the longevity, um, two issues, of course. One is Black businesses. Thank God we still have Ben's and Industrial and Lee's and the Black Masons, and Howard and Lincoln. Two other pieces of longevity: the energy from Howard students, always Howard students. Uh, every year, a new crop of young freshmen come, and women. They come and they bring energy, they bring intellect, and they bring Black excellence. And number three, the culture, whether it's the food or whether it's the music. Unfortunately, jazz is not what it used to be, but go-go is still making, go-go is still there, and it's still very relevant. Fortunately, go-go is bouncing back. That's so important. But it's the music, it's the food, it's the fashion, it's the walk, it's the talk, it's the fun. The fun is so important, and I think that energy on U Street is fun. And thank goodness for the Funk University and the Funk Parade, because that's what you all are doing. You're making sure our culture remains. Thank you.
And thank you guys, because all of you, your work and this conversation and just anything that you have brought to the street and taken from the street and innovated, that is also part of keeping it going as well and making and keeping this longevity. So I love U Street. We're all here because we love U Street. What are things that people like us who love U Street, what can we do to help continue its legacy? And we'll start with Brianna.
So I would say definitely join in on the conversation. You know, moments like today, if we don't tell the story, who's going to tell it? And someone's going to actually, no, I should rephrase that. If we don't tell the story, someone else is going to tell the story and they're going to tell it differently. You know, you hear that cliche all the time that, you know, history belongs to whoever tells it. And so us as, you know, as historians and journalists and authors and business owners and, you know, people of color, it's so important that we, especially in my generation, listen to those who have been on U Street for years, who have been there before us, and then tell and pass the history down. So when new things come, you know, it's not like, okay, nobody new on U Street, because if that's the case, then the businesses like Lee's and like Ben's, they wouldn't still be here. So it's not that we can't expand, but when we're expanding, let's still honor the people that were there before us. Let's honor the history as we're looking towards the future. So I just say, like, preservation, and you can do that by taking thanks to organizations like Cultural Tourism, who have their heritage trails where you can, print out a map on your own and just go around the city and learn. And you can, of course, stop in the Ben's and stop at Dr. Demchuk's table there. And, it's just so many resources are out there. You can go to the YWCA, the Phyllis Wheatley. It's still there. It's still open. The president there, she's awesome. The historian there is awesome. And, there's just so many different things you can do to get involved, get in the conversation. You could call 1DC and volunteer. Just get your hands, in the community. That's what I would say.
I love that you highlighted a mix of historical resources and actionable resources, and you framed it as being a part of the conversation, because I think what makes U Street so easy to love is that it's living history. It's literally a thread between, everything that's brought us here in our culture as Black people and what we have in the future in ways that we can innovate it. So thank you for that. Stacey and Bernie, if we love U Street, what can we do to continue its legacy?
Mm-hmm. I think what Brianna said was head on, and I can't think of anything else but I just want to say that met Brianna a couple years ago. Do you remember the year, Brianna, when you were first started the article? But oh, you're muted. But no, I just want to say that she's a great author, and I didn't realize you were the age that you are. You are brilliant to be the age you are and doing the things that you're doing. So I just wanted to say that. But no, what you said is what I would say about U Street.
Thank you. You're awesome too. You always made me feel like family.
Yeah.
The family was one of the first people that I interviewed, and they've just been awesome throughout the year. So
yes, thank you.
And awesome flowers.
No.
I think it's important to recognize that African Americans are 13% of the American population. However, American culture is about 90% influenced by African Americans. Think about that for a second. 13% of the population and about over 90% of religion and sports and music and dance and fashion and language, all of that is African American infused. So the longevity comes from the culture. Now, Brianna or Stacey mentioned a minute ago that Ben's had a DJ in the alley last Saturday. That was our birthday, August 22nd. Also happens to be the birthday of the Howard Theater. Also happens to be the birthday of Chuck Brown, August 22nd. So of course, music in the streets. And you got go-go happening. You've got jazz happening. You've got people standing on the corners. You've got people dancing, just reciting poetry. As much culture as possible is what we need. What the Funk Parade and the Funk University is doing is absolutely essential. I think that most importantly, we need to just continue to allow the culture to flourish. There should be music on every single corner. I know that Industrial Bank sometimes opens their parking lot across the street, and they have vending fairs there. And I know that Lee's Florist on the corner right there, Stacey, you have a vendors once every couple months, and all of that is street activity. The more street activity, the better. And I sit at my little table on Thursday, Friday, Saturday mornings, and I give free history lessons to anybody who wants to walk by. And guess what? When you walk out on the street and you feel all that culture, it's all free. And one of the more important things that we do, which is really wise, is that we have at least 30 murals up and down the street. Now, the murals are important because they tell our history, they tell our story, they beautify the neighborhood. Lee's Flower has a beautiful mural in their alley. Ben's, of course, has a bunch of murals. Murals are important because it's art, and art tells the story of our culture. So thank you, Funk Parade, for doing what you're doing.
Bernie, I absolutely have to agree with you that, having culture accessible in free ways, in a different variety of ways, is so essential to continuing the love and the legacy that has been built on U Street / Black Broadway as a nod to its really rich and really significant legacy. But as all of you are a huge part of our Funk family, from Funk University to Funk Parade and the different events and activities that are throughout the year, which portion of Funk Parade do you think that U Street can absolutely not live without? And we'll start with Stacey.
Well, just the energy, the whole thing is just wonderful. And, every year it got bigger and bigger. And I'm so sorry that this year we had, this COVID, but I feel like this gives you a reprieve, and then next year it'll come back bigger and stronger than ever. But I love the culture, the music, just the whole energy, seeing the diversity of the people that come and the music. So just everything about it, we can't lose. Nothing about it can we lose.
Brianna, what is it for you? Which portion of Funk Parade do you think the U Street cannot live without? You're muted, so I need you to start from the top.
I would definitely say the history portion of it. I know when Jessica first emailed me and we talked, and she was saying that this is something between maybe last year and this year that she wanted to really make sure she was adding in the history of the city itself, and specifically the area of the U Street corridor, because things have changed so much. Because gentrification isn't just in U Street, it's in most, prominent Black neighborhoods all throughout America. So it's so important to have the history a part of the Funk Parade. And so I'm thankful to be able to share the history or a portion of it, with everybody that's listening, because it's fun to celebrate and it's fun to dance and party and of course eat. I love eating. I keep mentioning that. Also, it's something that happens, just when you can. It's just honor. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to lose that honor of the richness of just the life of U Street. And you can't do that without going over the history. So.
Yeah, I absolutely have to agree with you. It is our history that makes those celebrations so meaningful. It's our history that, can allow us to have both joy and optimism through challenging and really unstable and chaotic times. So thank you. Bernie, you're a little biased, but what can't we live without? What portion of Funk Parade can't U Street live without?
Well, two things. Number one, I think Brianna is absolutely right. In the 60s, what we used to do is called teach-ins. And I think that Funk University has done a good job. Shout out to Jessica Tichy. I think that the more we do teach-ins, the more that we do little community sessions, the more we do roundtables, educating ourselves about the extraordinary history of Black excellence on the Black Broadway, number one. Number two, drumming. What you did so well was the drumming. All kinds of drumming, and we need drumming circles. We need the drum and the voice were the first instruments in humankind. The more drums, the more better, and the more opportunities for drumming circles and for parades with drumming. Don't lose the drumming. Thank you.
In having this conversation and reflecting on U Street, what I realize is that it has so much symbolic significance to me, but then there's also physical things. I love that you touched on the drum, because for many of us as people of color, the drum is a heartbeat. It's a physical heartbeat. It's kind of like the pulse, but it's a unified experience with that pulse, because you can share that rhythm with the people around you. And that is essential to having a vibrant music and cultural life in an area like U Street. Okay, so as we think about the future of U Street and our roles in it and the different things that we care about, can you guys share one thing that U Street needs in its future that has not been provided yet? And let's start with Bernie.
Well, I think that there were the 6 words that I was struggling with: Black, creative, SNCC, friendly, Benz, and jazz. And I came up that all of those words mean freedom. The more we have an opportunity to be free, the more people can walk down the street and be who they want to be, the more freedom that we have on every corner, and the more free we have, the more creativity and energy we have. So the Funk Parade has been a symbol of freedom. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. That's honestly how I feel when I'm connecting as an undergrad, coming to DC and being at predominantly white Georgetown and going to U Street. It is a freeing feeling. Like, I'm home, like I'm with my people, like they get me. I'm feeling that percussive vibe. Thank you for that, putting it so poetically. Brianna, you talked about innovation and education. What's one thing that U Street needs in this future that hasn't been provided yet?
Okay. Oh, you guys
Yes.
can hear me, right? Okay. In terms of education and innovation, I can't say that it hasn't been provided yet, but I can say that I would like to see more of it again. And I would say, just more young minds coming together and just the voice back. Part of my book is kind of like the tagline to it is the voices of U Street. And it was amazing to see Don't Mute DC, come last year in 2019, this protest for music, as Dr. Jemchik said, music should be on every corner of U Street. And I agree with that. But just these, that was innovation in its own way. U Street and Howard University, the center of starting the civil rights movement. And before the civil rights, we had leaders that ushered, this movement in. And so I would just like to see just a renewal of that type of energy, especially from our young people, of just taking a stand, having a voice, and then following through with it, getting people's attention and then keeping it, because we're really good sometimes at starting things, but what if we started a fire that never went out? Imagine like the hashtags never stop coming and it turns into, and you start seeing centers and community resources. I mean, things that have changed, like Martha's Table used to be on 14th Street for many, many years, servicing the less fortunate, and things like that are gone. But what if there were a group of young people that said, we're going to put our brains together and we're going to find out how to get some grants so that we can bring resources back to this community? So that's what I think. I can't say that it hasn't happened before, but I would like to see that happen again, and specifically with our women, because there were so many great women and leaders throughout history, from Mary Church Terrell to Mary Cloud Bethune, who, she was protesting, don't buy, where you can't work. And we see that right now. Right now, that's happening again in 2020. So, just come on, girls, girl power. We got this.
Thank you for that. Stacey, what about you? What does U Street need in its future that hasn't been provided yet?
Well, I'm going to say the same like Brianna. I mean, it's been provided in the past, but I was just thinking in my mind, access. We need, access to I'm sorry, these mosquitoes. Access to capital to build more, bring more Black businesses to U Street, and we need to go back to the past. Like Bernie was saying, there were over 200 Black businesses on U Street. We need that, at least 50% of that, or more on U Street to keep that culture there. I mean, we're working hard to keep it there, but we need more access to, like Brianna was saying, young people. Young people may feel like, oh, I can't get into U Street because of the rents and the high cost of being there. So maybe access to capital to be there, to get them there, get back to 50% Black-owned businesses on U Street.
What I love the most about everything that all three of you shared, it was that it's part of it is you're practicing it. Like, all of you are living the things that you have suggested. The mere presence of what you do, I see these things being carried through. So I am so grateful for everything that you guys do. And I'm honored to have this conversation. And the other pieces that I'm hearing are freedom and access, and really taking it upon yourself and not waiting for someone else to pick up this torch, but really saying, you know what, like, I can do this. I can operate from the things that I can control, and I can be a part of this conversation. So thank you all. We are going to begin to, unfortunately, close this conversation, this love session, this celebration of U Street and Black Broadway and its important legacy. But before we get out of here, I have just a couple more questions for you. The first one is, if you had to pick one word to describe what U Street means to you, what would it be?
For me, I would say culture. Culture, just culture, energy. That's 2 words.
I would say, I want to say rhythm. And by rhythm, I really mean like, I'm going to say 2 words or probably 3, just like Stacey. But I mean just by like, you know, like a sound, you know, like noise. Like U Street has a sound. You know, it has a sound, whether it's from, you're talking about someone protesting or standing up for equality, or whether it's Duke Ellington, or, you know, it has a sound. Or whether it's a business opening, whether it's the sound of you drinking a milkshake, you know what I mean? Like U Street has a sound, whether it's Mochella or it was, you know, a cabaret back when True Reformers was open, or the Lincoln Colonnade. Like U Street just has so much rhythm, and that's just the word. Whenever I'm on U Street, whenever I'm researching it or talking to somebody or interviewing somebody, you just start to hear like this little beat. You know, I know I'm doing a little go-go bounce, but that's what you know, that's what U Street is. That's it. You hear it more than you can see it, you know?
You know, that is so perfect. Like just the idea that U Street has a sound, because like as you know, as we prepare for the Funk Parade Gallery and this conversation and just all of these activities related to celebrating Black Broadway and U Street, there was a sound that I kept hearing. Like maybe it was like the glasses clinking in the bottom of Marvin, or maybe it's walking down the street and hearing people, different accents, different, just different vibes, but all of it being in some way connected or in celebration of Black culture. U Street has a sound. It absolutely has a sound. That's beautiful.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I think that my word is really freedom. My 6 Black, creative, snick, friendly, bends, and jazz. The common denominator of those 6 words, which is the rhythm of U Street, Brianna, that's perfect. The rhythm of U Street is freedom. That's what best there. And that's why, Candace, you felt so free when you came from Lily White, Georgetown, God bless them, and you came to U Street. You could be you. And when I came from the University of Maryland, I was kind of funky back in those days. I could be free on U Street, and the Black people allowed me to be free. Here I am a white guy, and they're allowing me to be who I want to be on U Street. So to me, it's freedom.
Yeah. You pointed out that, you know, like I could be me or you could be you on U Street. But I think what's also happening simultaneously is that you're also being we on U Street. Like as you go there, you are finding yourself, but then you're also sharing that with the person sitting next to you or the person walking alongside you up and down the street. And that I'm happy to come together over this. And I am so appreciative to everyone, Dina as well, for being part of this conversation. Before we leave, please, you guys are doing important work. How can we support each of you? Brianna, you have the book coming out in January. Tell us what can we do in the meantime. Tell us what to do in January. Tell us where to find you.
So the book will be released January 4th, 2021, which I'm excited about. It is finally coming out, guys. And so for updates on that, you can follow me on Twitter at Briatho, which is Briatho. And I just started an Instagram page for the book itself and the project itself, which is called The Black Broadway. So you can follow the Instagram page for updates. I'm probably going to do some Instagram live interviews with some cool U Streeters. So, you know, check that out. And when the book is released, it'll be pretty much on anywhere you can buy books, Amazon, you know, Barnes and Noble. So it'll be pretty simple to find. So just check me out on social media. And thanks again. This was awesome. Yes.
And thank you. We absolutely can't wait to support you and see all the good stuff that you are bringing to us. Bernie, how can we support you?
Well, I think keep buying on U Street and keep particularly buying in African-American stores. We cannot lose that essential heart of U Street. And of course, support Brianna's book and buy flowers from Lee's and open up an account at Industrial Bank and come to Ben's Chili Bowl and eat a chili dog. If you don't eat chili dog, get a turkey dog. If you don't do that, then get some veggie chili. But just keep buying Black on U Street.
I love it. I love it.
And you're hearing that from a white guy.
And Dr. Demchuk wrote the epilogue to my book. I don't want to forget to mention that. So 2 in 1.
Stacey.
Yeah, so you can reach us at leesflowerandcard.com. And also, I wanted to say, Brianna, we want to sell the book too, so you'll be able to get it at Lee's Flower Shop as well. And support Ben's Chili Bowl. And, Industrial Bank, we've had our account there for 75 years. The whole 75 years we've been around. And I guess they've been around 85 years. So we're one big happy family on U Street. Oohs and ahs, all of those, the hair salons on U Street. I do all my shopping on U Street. There's my hair salon is Signature Image, and there's Zawadi Gifts. That's a black shop on U Street. So just support your businesses on U Street. Can't say it enough.
So we're going to absolutely do that. We are going to support you all. We're going to follow you and keep in touch with everything. One thing that I have gained from this conversation one thing that I'm seeing in this conversation is how full circle everything is. From the way that your lives and your work have intersected each other at various points throughout the history, or the way that all three of you can trace in some way your personal histories through the history of U Street. So I just think it makes it real for us. It makes the importance of the street, it makes the importance of the history there real, and we can make these connections with who we are and what we hope to become. So thank you, all three of you, Stacey of Lee's Flower Shop, Rihanna, author of, remind me of the title.
Black Broadway in Washington, D.C.
Author of Black Broadway in Washington, D.C. And Bernie, the historian for the Ben's Chili Bowl Foundation. Thank you for your insight and your wisdom. I'm your host, Candace Carrington. This has been If U Street Could Talk. To see the rest of the gallery and the conversations earlier, visit dcfunkparade.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. You've been thank you. Great host.